Hello and welcome one and all. This is Plancocat here and welcome back to Planco Catacombs. So glad to have you here for episode 5. We're starting here though in episode 4. This is where we left off in the last episode with Catacomb Run. This is just the bare bones because in episode 5, boy do I have something to show you. All of this has been delicately and expertly themed and crafted by hand, each tree meticulously placed, and boy, does it look absolutely fantastic. This area is done. I've even expanded over into this area. A lot of work and love has been put into this coaster, so I don't want to drag this on for too long because I know you all want to see the finished product. Some of you have if you follow me on Instagram already, but this is the first time that you're going to see it live. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the big reveal. And here it is, the 100% complete Catacomb Run, at least what you can see of it as it coasts and flies over the tips and tops of the trees. And boy, a lot of work has gone into this ride. It has been a labor of love, definitely my favorite in the park so far. One of my all-time favorite coasters to pull together. And if you've seen my other parks from the original Planet Coaster, you know, some of those were pretty darn good too, if I say so myself. But this is the first launch coaster I've ever done, first multi-launch coaster I've ever done. Not the first terrain coaster, and I believe it shows in this particular instance. But I had a lot of fun throwing this together. Every tree you see is hand placed. Every rock you see is hand placed. I did not use the scenery brush. I only used the scenery brush for the maybe the edges of my parks, and I haven't even used it for this park at all. So everything you see here has been hand placed, and it has come out spectacularly. I'll point out some things to you along the way, things that have been custom supported, things that I really enjoy, and things that I hope you enjoy as well. So I've already walked you through the layout of the coaster in episode 4. If you haven't seen episode 4, go back and check out that episode. That's a good one. But you know, everything beyond pretty much this danger sign here has changed. So you hit the rolling launch, of course, and that area has definitely changed. I've decided to use the planks here and the rock wall. I believe before this was almost the other way around. The planks were serving as the wall, and that Viking jetty piece has really been a saving grace of this ride. It has been such an invaluable piece, and you'll see it everywhere throughout the ride. But yeah, once you hit the rolling launch, of course, you're familiar with the layout, but I really just want to call your attention to all of the rock work and the scenery and the way that it interacts with the terrain. Now, this side of the coaster, of course, is undone. I don't know what's going to be over here, but I didn't want to just fill it up with trees and things like that, because you never know. I don't want to limit myself to just filling in with, with trees and then, limiting myself or my imagination in that way. I like to keep things open and chew on them a little bit and think about them a little bit before I commit to anything. But the way you fly through that section and then back down near the launch and then you rip over this hill, I love it, into this inversion, which is now custom supported. That was not custom supported in episode 4. And then you hit this turnaround. And this turnaround, the water was not this wide. It was not this expanded in episode 4. In episode 4, I said, hey, I have no idea what I want to do with this area, but you should see it now as I'm working on episode 6. I have a bit of an idea of what I want to do, and it's pretty well fleshed out, and I'll explain once we come back to this area. But I did expand the water, and I loved just the natural curve that it gave. I added in a waterfall, as you see here, just another element for the ride to interact with, right? You're not very close, but there you are. And again, as you rip up and over and back into the catacomb section, you'll just see hints of what you see throughout the ride. This Viking rock wall is also very consistent throughout the ride and another invaluable piece. But really, you know, this turnaround section, it's almost a separate section of the ride, right? You kind of leave the catacombs, according to the story, and you turn around out over the water. But once you rip up this hill and over this turn, you kind of re-enter the catacomb area. And then you hit, again, this insane corkscrew turnaround, custom supported, right? These are custom supports. I had to change those because the ones in game, they just weren't doing it for me. But you hit this insane corkscrew turnaround, and then you dive into the deepest part of the catacombs. And I loved creating this because, number one, it was a challenge with the terrain. It's never easy. But actually having the pieces in place to kind of tell a story where it's like they're trying to hold back the catacombs from collapsing in on themselves, and they've had to put up these heavy stones and these giant walls, and the foliage is poking through because it's starting to collapse. And when you dive in, I mean, talk about a head chopper. I mean, talk about a close call between the rocks and the supports. But as you dive in, even the jetty pieces, the way they're angled, really throws you off, because at this point you really don't know which way is up and which way is down until you're really into the most catacomby section of the Catacomb Run. And man, this is great. I love how I was able to put the water down here and even have the waterfalls coming from the ceiling, almost like it's about to collapse. It's a little bit unstable. There's leakage. There's maybe a drainage problem. And especially since you've just come from turning over all of that water, almost like it's making its way into this part of the ride. And as you work your way through, and you've got the green lighting, that's a nice effect. I don't know why I chose green. I mean, it's my favorite color. The ride is green, so there's a reasoning. But you know, you have the plank work dragging you up, and let's see if I can delicately finesse the camera here. Yes, I can. And then you're into your second launch, of course, and you've seen this section, right? You've seen, there you go. You've seen this section of the ride in episode 4, and pretty much, you know, from the second launch into this giant turnaround, you've seen, right? This is done. All right, so there's really nothing to talk about over here. It just looks great. I just like looking at it. I think it's fantastic. But then when you dive back underneath the unloading station, then you're kind of back into more of the foliage work and the rock work. And, you know, I've sealed off some things with this tunnel and tidied some things up and just filled some gaps, right? I did a lot of filling of the gaps, as it were. But you hit this massive corkscrew, and again, that's now custom supported. Each tree meticulously placed, especially when you get down to guest level. I love this view. And this is what I wanted. There we go. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I did not want to cover that up at all. And I didn't want the trees to be so towering, and there you can see it way off in the distance. I didn't want the trees to be so high where you're just like, okay, that's just flat land out there. I wanted to give the impression that, no, the land sinks, right? There's some kind of a valley, there's some kind of a collapse, some kind of catacomb, perhaps, beyond this wall. And that's exactly the effect that I got. So no tree is too high, and each tree is pretty proportionate to the ground that it sits on, which is very low. So once you complete that giant corkscrew, you hit a nice quick pop of air time up above the trees, and then you're back down again over that magnificent jetty piece. You make a nice turnaround, and you start to enter the second half of the ride, which is all about twists and turns and picking up speed, and is probably my favorite part of the ride. We've got a train coming now. So as soon as you make that turnaround, you dive right back in amongst the trees, and you're into this turnaround. You can see they're really picking up some speed there, but we won't try to follow them because they're moving way too fast. But I do love this turnaround. I love all of the wood. I love the stone that's peeking through, the terrain work here. I love the planks, and I love this shipwreck piece. The way it naturally curves lends itself to this part of the ride. And I shrunk it down and did the same thing down here, right? Just the way it curves, it really does work. It's one of my favorite pieces to use. I didn't want to overuse it, but sometimes you just need a piece that fits the bill. And then once you're down here, you know, you're really getting into the collapse here. Something's going on. But this is one of my favorite parts of the ride. One of my favorite views of the ride, actually. The way that you have the foliage, the rock work, the palisades poking out of the water. We've got another train here. The way it zooms by, look at how fast they're going, right into this tunnel, which is actually angled uphill, but on ride, it looks like you're going in a straight line. It's just a nice visual effect to make you feel like you're going straight. You're actually going uphill, and then you hit this very quick turn. Again, just kind of framed by this shipwreck piece that I just sized up, angled, and I wanted to cut it off from all of this track over here. We got a lot of track over here. This is the one section that, you know, I had to leave open, right? Because we have a lot of trains, a lot of track, a lot of clearance to consider. But over here, I was able to block this quick turnaround off. And then as soon as you hit that turn, you're down to probably my second favorite part of the ride, which again, you're down low to the water. There's some more mist, and you got a couple of waterfalls. It's a little bit more different. You see this, there they go. You see this this gateway, these boatyard logs. You see all of that again. So these are things that you've seen throughout the ride, but they're just being used a little bit here, a little bit there, and a little bit differently everywhere. So it's, you know, they're the same pieces, but they're being used differently and in different places. And so once you complete this section of the ride, then you can emerge out of the catacombs, right? You work your way up, you twist, you turn, one final turn over the water, and then you enter the brake run, which again, boatyard logs, Viking jetty, Viking stone wall, but it's consistent, and I love the way that it appears to hold back the water, right? And you're thinking in your mind, you know, you got a giant body of water over here, you have a giant body of water over here, but then inside the ride, you've got just little pools and ponds and waterfalls, almost as if the catacombs are collapsing under the pressure of the water, the huge volumes of water on both sides. So, you know, that's the story, right? And that's something I couldn't tell you in episode 4 because it didn't exist yet, right? There was an idea, but there wasn't a story. And once you make it out of the catacombs and make it back safely to the station, do you realize that, wow, I survived this intimidating crush of water that is collapsing all of these catacombs. But that is what the ride is looking like. Looking forward to episode 6, a lot of work is being done in this area, and this curve that naturally comes with the coaster and the water lent itself to an amphitheater. And that is what I have put in over here for episode 6. I'll give you a sneak peek of what I'm talking about. I found a creator on YouTube, and I can't remember their name. I'll give them a shout out in the description. But yeah, he had a great video about how to do different shapes and things with pathing, and you could see I've been playing around over here. But this is pretty similar to what I have in there now. This is a bit big. The curve is a little bit off, and I think it's about the same. You know, it's about the same rise in height. I think that's about right. But that's pretty much what I have over here. It's not too large, right? It's not too large, but there is a space for you to sit and grab a bite to eat. There's a grab and go unit I've put in. It looks fantastic. So keep an eye on this space and keep an eye out for episode 6 because that is going to be one of the focal points of episode 6, as is, not to take you away from the coaster, this area over here, which I've been wondering what to do since episode 1, you know, or since I put the coaster in and the train. I've had no idea what to do with that area, but I gotta say, with these last 2 or 3 days, it's really come to life. But back to this area, this is what it's looking like now, and I'm very happy with it, and I'm done with it. I haven't been back to work on this area for a while. All of my work past episode 5 has been just what I've shown you. So I haven't come back here. I might come back here for, you know, touch-ups, you know, lights and bins and little things here, little things there. But, you know, I'm that kind of player. You know, it's never 100% done, but it is done, but it's not. There's always something to do. So I might come back, but for now, I'm very, very happy with it. I want to move on to other areas of the park. I still have, you know, the whole water park that I want to put in. So a lot of stuff to do, but this is the way it's looking now. I'm not going to keep you from the coaster. We're going to get right on here. So I'll say this is Plancocat signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day, your night, wherever or whenever you are. Thank you for getting to the end of the video. And don't forget to give me a follow on Instagram at Plancocat. And if you like, leave a like, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.